girls! So welcome back to the episode of Favorite for My Friday. In today's case, we're going to be discussing a case out of Mexico. The last case, I think, was actually out of Japan, and so this one is out of Mexico, you know, trying to stay out of the States for a little bit. I definitely have cases in the States, but I think I just wanted to be a little bit more diverse when it came to covering these cases. And so this case is actually, I think, my first and probably only unsolved case, but we know the killer was a female because there are witnesses. We just don't know, like, who exactly it is. And so I hope that makes sense. If you're from the area or you know someone from the area, like, let me know if you've heard of it. Let me know, like, any additional information you may have. And so, yeah, let's just go ahead and get started.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the monster out of my head, under my bed. Think you're something out of my nightmares, standing right there. But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, then will you get bored of killing me?
And so remember how I said this case is currently unsolved. So we don't know exactly who the killer is. We just know that they're female. And so yeah, so I can't give you like the birth date, how they grew up, any of that. But we do know that they lived in Juarez, Mexico at one point. And so on August 28th, 2013, a woman only identified as Diana, who went by Diana. A woman who only went by Diana would get on the bus on Route 718, and then she would be on the bus for about 15 minutes before getting off. Would assume, like, you know, just a regular person get off at a stop. She would walk up to the bus driver and end up shooting him at close range at about 7:45. And so apparently she had shot him twice, and so he had got out of the vehicle. And so the driver, Jose Roberto Flores Corrida, I hope I am saying that right, he gets out, he basically is on the sidewalk, and then dies shortly after that. When she left, apparently, like, no one, despite there being like 20 witnesses, some of them being the same witnesses at like another crime scene that later happened, they couldn't tell that they didn't give the police like what direction she went in. Apparently, when she was on the bus, she had like blonde hair, so that made her stand out. So remember, because most people wearing like their natural like black hair, and they didn't know whether it was a wig or whether she had dyed it blonde. But she, you know, 5'4", blonde, possibly the blonde possibly being a wig, but a dark complexion, in her 50s. And so the next day, literally on the same stop, around the same time, so by exactly a day later, she ended up killing the next bus driver, being Freddie Zaret Morales. And apparently, according to witnesses on the bus, she had shouted, "You think you're so bad, don't you?" before she shot him. She would actually send an email to the local newspaper. Attached, I'll basically like put a picture of basically what it said, and you can read it for yourself. And so basically, apparently there was also a Facebook page regarding her name. It's not exactly known if that was her Facebook page or just like someone who was a fan of what she did. So sorry, I forgot in the note she would sign her name Diana, Huntress of Bus Drivers. And so because like in the letter she had mentioned like Malcuadoras, it was believed that either she was one, so she was a factory worker, or she was close to someone who was a factory worker. So it was said that the bus drivers were actually involved in violating the young woman there, and that the police actually apparently knew about it, but they like weren't doing anything about it, and most of the cases were unsolved. The police would even go as far as to try to blame the lifestyles of the young women, and they've run away with their lovers, even though that they literally had children, that they weren't the type to do that. But you know, anything to like get the family off the police's case. So now that two murders have happened with the same route, the same different bus drivers, but like the same route, same bus, around the same time, same stop, I think actually. Obviously the bus drivers are supposed to be going over that route. They're obviously scared. They don't want to go because they're not sure they're going to be next. And so I think like half of the 30 assigned to go on that particular route, they didn't want to go because they were scared of being next, which understandably. And so eventually they pretty much did start going back to work eventually, and crime would actually go down. Like it would take a dramatic slope down, but then was spiked up again in 2017. For what reason, I'm not exactly sure. It was believed that Diana had actually gotten her name from a statue in Mexico City called La Diana Cazadora. And so it's also said that she possibly could have gotten her name from Wonder Woman, and also from the Greek goddess Diana, who apparently was the goddess of hunting, so huntress of bus drivers, which would make sense. All of those are very plausible theories, which we don't even know exactly where she got from, because remember, we don't know who she is. And so police were starting to connect the dots and realize that 20 years ago, so like 1993, because remember this took place in 2013, the fact that just so happened to be around the 20th anniversary of an infamous murder in that area, that wasn't a coincidence. And so what happened was, back in 1993, this 13-year-old apparently got abducted. And so despite her only being 13, the police basically blame it on her family and their lifestyle. I don't even know if the 13-year-old's murder ever got solved. And so apparently this is what had apparently kicked off a series of violence against women. And so within like a decade, 300 women, at least 300 women that they know of, had been murdered. So many of these women that had gotten murdered around this time, they apparently had went missing during their like morning ride or about night ride down to the factory, because most of them were factory workers, in fact. And so remember, the bus drivers were also, not all of them, but like most of them were kind of like drug dealers on the side. And so a lot of bus drivers were suspected, with one actually being convicted, so arrested and sentenced and all that stuff. And then his sentence would get overturned. Apparently he had a co-defendant, but his co-defendant would actually die in prison before before the trial. Remember, they don't know exactly who this woman even was. And so because of this, they started banning. Some drivers did want women entirely get on the bus. They had set up to where police officers were like undercover, so they weren't just regular civilian clothes, but they were like actually police officers. So in case she was to strike again, they could possibly catch her in the act. So then, of course, I guess Diana felt that she had instilled enough fear into them, and so there wasn't ever like another attack, at least the one that they can find where they can absolutely connect it to Diana. And so her identity remains unknown. It is said that it is the same person that committed this crime. And so apparently the following year, a song was actually made regarding Diana's attacks in Juarez, Mexico. So yeah, that was a case of Diana, the huntress of bus drivers. And so I think it's actually interesting that this case is currently unsolved. I think that's the first unsolved case I've ever covered. I normally don't like covering unsolved cases. I kind of like knowing who the killer is. Like, even if they're out, at least we know like who they are, if that makes sense. And so yeah, I hope you failed to learn something new today, and I'll see you with the next one. Bye.
Standing right there. But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, then will you get bored of killing me?
Silhouettes of you are like a taunt. Never really know just what you want. With you I don't ever feel calm. I can feel the sweat inside my palms. Play with me like cats and a string. You don't understand the pain it brings. You don't ever wanna give me wings. You don't ever wanna set me free. You know I'm addicted to you, and it's twisted, you've been gifted with the evil voodoo. Got me coming back for more, even when I've been screwed. Dolls full of pins, pierce my heart straight through. I got issues in my head, I like you in my bed, but you keep me on red. Oh, everything is like a test, I better not text or I'll come off desperate.
But if I